ancient army of warriors has been quietly conquering the world. Wherever small battalions of China's famous terracotta warriors are exhibited, they win over a new legion of fans.
2,000 years of silence. A sealed chamber rumored to hold rivers of mercury, star-painted skies, and lethal traps. Today, AI-driven scans and non-invasive sensors are mapping the Emperor's underground kingdom from the outside, revealing toxic signatures and structural clues that make scientists hesitate. What exactly did they see? Why do the world's best archaeologists still refuse to open it? And how close are we to peering inside without cracking a single brick? Let's find out. The Emperor who tried to rule death. Buried beneath a vast man-made hill the size of a pyramid lies a chamber that no living person has ever entered. This is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. And for over 2 millennia, it has remained sealed, shrouded in rumors of rivers of liquid mercury, deadly mechanical traps, and unimaginable treasures meant to last forever. Scientific instruments can already detect strange and unsettling signals coming from inside, yet the central chamber has never been breached. Why does every new scan of this place make scientists hesitate? Why do some believe the contents could kill intruders or vanish the instant the tomb is opened? And why are archaeologists quietly admitting that what they've detected terrifies them? Qin Shi Huang was no ordinary ruler. Before his rise, China was divided into rival states locked in endless war, each using its own coins, scripts, and laws. By 221 BC, he had conquered them all, founding the Qin dynasty and crowning himself the first emperor. His rule reshaped every corner of the land. He forced a single written script on the nation, standardized currency, unified weights and measures, and even regulated the width of cart axles so that all wagons could fit neatly onto the same roads. He built roads, canals, and fortifications that laid the foundation for the Great Wall. To his subjects, he seemed almost unstoppable, a man determined to bend not just people, but the very structure of society to his will. But the emperor's obsession did not end with armies or laws. He feared death so profoundly that it consumed him. He sent envoys searching for mythical islands of immortals, swallowed strange potions laced with mercury, and ordered alchemists to create elixirs that might allow him to rule forever. When it became clear that his body could not escape mortality, he began designing a new kingdom beneath the earth, one that would let him reign in death as he had in life. The mausoleum he ordered into existence sprawls across nearly 98 square kilometers near modern Xi'an. It is one of the largest archaeological sites in the world. Yet, at its center sits a sealed burial mound rising 50 meters high, untouched since the day it was sealed in 210 BC. What lies inside that mound has been described only once, by the historian Sima Qian, writing about a century later. His account paints a picture of a tomb that is both spectacular and terrifying. He claimed the chamber contained rivers and seas made of flowing mercury, mountains built of bronze, and a ceiling painted with the stars of the night sky. He warned that engineers had fitted the tomb with hidden crossbows designed to fire automatically at anyone who dared enter. For centuries, these claims sounded like fantastical exaggerations, but in recent decades, soil samples around the mound have revealed mercury concentrations hundreds of times higher than normal, confirming that vast amounts of the toxic metal may truly be sealed inside. The old story of rivers of mercury may not have been metaphorical after all. And if Sima Qian's account was accurate about that, could he also have been right about the deadly booby traps? Even if traps no longer function, another danger is undeniable: fragility. When farmers discovered the Terracotta Army in 1974, thousands of clay warriors emerged from the earth. Each had once been painted in bright, lifelike colors, reds, blues, and greens that gave every soldier a unique presence. Yet, the moment they were exposed to air and sunlight, the paint began to flake and vanish. Within hours, most of the color was gone forever. That disaster left archaeologists shaken. As Business Insider, Nature, and studies cataloged in PubMed have noted, a sealed chamber can protect fragile pigments, textiles, and organic remains for thousands of years, but a sudden change in air pressure, humidity, or light can destroy them in days. Opening the emperor's tomb without the right technology could erase treasures that have survived intact since the Iron Age. That is why scientists have chosen to keep the mound sealed, focusing instead on non-invasive exploration. For decades, they have swept the area with instruments that can probe the Earth without disturbing it. Satellite imagery and aerial photography have revealed patterns that align with the outlines of a buried city, while soil coring provides chemical clues without breaching the chamber. Yet, despite all this effort, what lies in the heart of the tomb remains invisible. Push too hard, and the moment of revelation could be the moment of destruction. To drill blindly might release clouds of mercury vapor, collapse fragile earthen structures, or strip pigments and textiles bare in minutes. The question is no longer simply whether the tomb should be opened, but whether it can ever be opened without destroying the very secrets it was built to protect. In the end, the emperor who sought to live forever has created a riddle that still resists us. The shocking new scans beneath Xi'an. For years, the stories of rivers of mercury inside the emperor's tomb were dismissed as exaggerations. But very recently, scientists armed with advanced scanning tools have confirmed something that shocked even the most cautious experts. Using a mobile differential absorption LiDAR system, researchers detected plumes of mercury rising invisibly above the burial mound, a toxic vapor floating in the air where it should not exist. The readings were not just background noise, they aligned with earlier soil surveys that had already shown mercury levels hundreds of times higher than natural baselines. The new data published in Nature and indexed in PubMed provided the most compelling evidence yet that the interior of the mound truly contains vast reservoirs of liquid mercury, enough for measurable quantities to leak upward through the soil. That means the ancient text describing flowing rivers of poison inside may not have been metaphorical at all. It was describing a real engineered feature, and the scale of contamination is so large that scientists now warn the chamber could release a deadly atmosphere the moment it is breached. Could this explain why, even in an era of robotic probes and surgical excavation, no one dares to open the tomb? The shock does not end there. In 2025, geochemical analyses reported by Archaeology News online magazine and Heritage Daily traced the most likely source of this mercury. Researchers found isotopic signatures that matched cinnabar deposits from Sunyang in Shanxi province, a mining center active in the Qin period. Transporting and refining cinnabar into elemental mercury on the scale required for the tomb would have been a logistical feat of staggering proportions, demanding the labor of thousands and immense imperial resources. This was not an accident of natural contamination, but a deliberate act of engineering ordered by Qin Shi Huang himself. The implication is chilling. The emperor's obsession with immortality was so extreme that he poured extraordinary amounts of poison into his burial chamber, perhaps believing mercury had life-giving or protective properties. If the isotopic analyses are correct, the tomb may contain tens of tons of liquid mercury sealed underground, creating not just an archaeological treasure, but also a toxic hazard waiting to be released. At the same time, another line of research has provided more concrete dimensions for what might be hidden inside. In 2024, scientists using ground-penetrating radar and gravimetric surveys reconstructed models of the central complex. These reconstructions, reported in Heritage Daily, suggest that beneath the mound lies a structure the size of a palace, roughly 140 meters long, 110 meters wide and 30 meters high. Within that, a central coffin chamber measuring about 80 by 50 by 15 meters appears to form the core of the burial. These are not guesses based on legend, but physical models derived from the way radar waves bounce through the ground and how gravity anomalies reveal changes in density. While no one has yet seen the interior directly, these numbers offer the first tangible scale. A subterranean complex, larger than a cathedral, sealed in darkness for more than 2,000 years. The sheer size of these chambers adds weight to the old accounts of a miniature empire beneath the earth, and it reminds us that if they ever collapse or are exposed too quickly, the damage could be irreversible. If mercury surveys and radar reconstructions were not dramatic enough, a separate development may finally give scientists a way to see into the chamber without breaking its seal. Chinese research teams have been advancing the use of cosmic ray muon radiography, a method that harnesses subatomic particles constantly raining down from the atmosphere. These muons can penetrate deep into solid material, and by placing detectors around a structure, scientists can measure how many particles make it through different sections. Areas of lower density, such as hidden chambers or tunnels, allow more muons to pass, while solid rock or earth blocks them. Simulations published in the Journal of Physics from the Chinese Physical Society and in MDPI show that muon tomography could map the voids inside the Emperor's Mound with an error margin of only a few percent. Field deployments at other imperial tombs have already demonstrated that the technique is viable, and if scaled up, it could allow archaeologists to create a three-dimensional image of the chamber without lifting a single brick. The promise of muon imaging is extraordinary because it overcomes one of the greatest barriers in archaeology: the trade-off between knowledge and destruction. Every invasive method, from drilling to coring, risks damaging the sealed environment, releasing toxins, or accelerating decay. Non-invasive geophysics offers hints, but lacks resolution. Muon tomography sits in between, providing structural detail without penetration. If successful, it could reveal the exact arrangement of halls, walls, and possibly even large artifacts within the chamber, all while keeping the tomb sealed. Yet here too lies a hook. Even if we can map the interior, should we? If the scans confirm massive quantities of mercury and fragile structures, does that make the temptation to open the tomb stronger? Or does it reinforce the argument that doing so would be suicidal for both people and artifacts? It is worth pausing on the implications of the mercury data. The plumes detected above the mound are not theoretical. They are measurable in the open air. This means that after more than 2,000 years, the tomb is still slowly leaking poison through the soil. If disturbed improperly, the rate of release could multiply. Mercury vapor is highly toxic to human health, attacking the nervous system and lungs. Even at low concentrations, it can cause lasting damage, and at higher concentrations, it can be lethal. For fragile artifacts, a sudden shift in temperature and gas exchange could trigger chemical reactions that destroy pigments, metals, and organic remains. What this means in practice is that scientists cannot simply walk into the chamber wearing protective suits. The act of breaking the seal could itself annihilate what they are trying to preserve. Meanwhile, the sourcing of cinnabar from distant mines is more than just a technical detail. It demonstrates how far Qin Shi Huang was willing to go in pursuit of his afterlife vision. Transporting heavy cinnabar ore over long distances, refining it into liquid mercury, and then channeling it into elaborate underground rivers was a massive engineering project in itself. This is a reminder that the tomb was not a hurried burial, but a 40-year effort that consumed resources on a national scale. Every drop of mercury was deliberately placed there, and every plume now escaping into the modern air is a message from that ancient obsession. The emperor's desire to control death created one of the most hazardous archaeological sites on Earth, and ironically, his dream of immortality may now prevent anyone from ever entering his grave. The radar and gravimetry results add yet another layer of awe and unease. The numbers, 140 by 110 by 30 meters for the palace-like structure and 80 by 50 by 15 meters for the coffin chamber, are so immense that they confirm we are dealing with something unlike any other tomb in the world. For comparison, the main burial chamber is larger than many modern sports halls. Such scale makes it plausible that the chamber contains complex reconstructions of a city, with halls, walls, and symbolic rivers and mountains, just as ancient texts claimed. If muon tomography confirms these dimensions, the world will have the first direct evidence that the Qin emperor truly built an empire below ground, a microcosm of his realm preserved in silence. This is the paradox scientists face in the 21st century. Technology has given us the power to peer beneath the mound with unprecedented clarity, to confirm that the ancient warnings were grounded in fact, and to sketch the outlines of the emperor's subterranean kingdom. But the terrifying truth is that the most advanced scans do not bring us closer to opening the chamber. They remind us why we must keep it closed until we can guarantee its safety. Qin Shi Huang sought to rule forever, and in a way, his will still governs the site. Every new scan proves his vision was real, and every new discovery shows why his secrets remain locked beneath the earth. What I just scanned actually means. When people hear that I just scanned the tomb of the first emperor, it is easy to imagine robots rolling into the chamber with cameras, but the reality is both more subtle and more powerful. No one has entered the tomb. Instead, scientists collect enormous amounts of data from above and around the mound using advanced sensing technologies. And it is the artificial intelligence systems that transform these raw signals into meaningful images, predictions, and warnings. The scans themselves are only the first step. The true breakthroughs come from what AI can pull from patterns that human eyes might miss. The data sources feeding into these systems are surprisingly diverse. Airborne LiDAR, which uses lasers fired from drones or planes, maps the ground surface in exquisite detail, stripping away vegetation and modern features to reveal subtle changes in elevation that may mark buried walls or roads. Ground-based LiDAR performs a similar task on a smaller scale, capturing three-dimensional structures such as the terracotta army pits with millimeter precision. Ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, works like a medical ultrasound, sending radio waves into the soil and recording reflections from buried layers. Magnetometry detects how ancient fired materials or walls subtly distort Earth's magnetic field, while gravimetry measures minute changes in gravitational pull to flag voids and hidden chambers. Satellite imagery adds another layer, including not only modern optical and radar satellites, but also stacks of historical data such as Corona spy photographs from the Cold War era, which captured landscapes before urbanization erased many features. Finally, environmental gas sampling measures chemical concentrations, like mercury vapor or carbon dioxide, which can seep through the soil from the sealed chamber. Together, these sources generate terabytes of noisy, overlapping signals. This is where AI steps in. According to studies published on ResearchGate and in Science Direct, machine learning models, particularly convolutional neural networks, CNNs, and transformer architectures, are now being trained to process radargrams, magnetics, and digital elevation models far more effectively than humans. CNNs excel at pattern recognition in images, so they can highlight faint linear anomalies in radar data that correspond to walls or passageways, even when buried deep and distorted by noise. Transformers, originally designed for natural language, are being adapted to integrate multiple layers of information, learning long-range dependencies, and fusing datasets from radar, magnetometry, and LiDAR into coherent probability maps. By denoising the signals and flagging where anomalies overlap, these models can identify the most promising void-like signatures without digging. A second role for AI lies in inversion and reconstruction. Muon tomography, as we saw earlier, records how many cosmic ray particles penetrate different parts of the mound. The raw counts are just numbers on a detector, but by applying inversion algorithms, researchers can turn those numbers into three-dimensional density maps. The process is like solving a puzzle backwards. Given the pattern of muons that made it through, what configuration of chambers and walls must be inside? AI-driven optimization algorithms handle this reconstruction, adjusting millions of variables until the virtual model matches the real data. Results published in woolexp.ife.ac.can show that with sufficient detector coverage, these methods can localize the boundaries of internal chambers and even estimate their size and orientation with single-digit % error. For archaeologists, this means being able to map the interior layout of the tomb without opening it. Another critical function is environmental risk modeling. Once mercury plumes were detected above the mound, the challenge became predicting where they come from and how they might spread if the tomb is disturbed. Using correlations between gas concentrations in soil cores, air samples, and local geology, AI models can simulate possible leak paths. Publications listed in PubMed describe how these models combine physical diffusion equations with machine learning pattern recognition to map likely corridors of vapor escape. This is not just theoretical. Knowing which areas are already leaking allows scientists to design safer survey routes and prevents excavation in zones where concentrations could be dangerously high. The same modeling can also predict how the microclimate inside might collapse if the chamber is opened without stabilization, underscoring why extreme caution is necessary. Perhaps the most ambitious work has come from what Chinese researchers call space-to-ground integrated observation frameworks. Described in Nature and ResearchGate, these systems merge satellite data, aerial LiDAR, and ground-based geophysics into a unified pipeline. By aligning observations across scales, from hundreds of kilometers in orbit down to centimeters in excavated pits, they validate features such as passageways, courtyards, and geomantic orientations at Qin-era mausolea. Applied to the first emperor's mound, this toolchain confirms patterns consistent with deliberate feng shui alignments and suggests where causeways and drains likely run. What makes this impressive is not just the precision, but the holistic perspective. By combining sensors and AI across multiple platforms, researchers can detect hidden features that no single method could confirm on its own. The phrase AI just scanned therefore refers to this entire pipeline. First, sensors gather data across electromagnetic, gravitational, and chemical domains. Second, AI models clean and interpret that data, filtering noise, highlighting anomalies, and fusing disparate signals into coherent maps. Third, inversion algorithms reconstruct three-dimensional density and layout. Fourth, risk models simulate environmental hazards, ensuring that no one approaches blind. And finally, integrated frameworks align all scales of observation, validating results against historical context and known Qin-era patterns. The outcome is not a photograph of the tomb's interior, but a probability map, a scientifically grounded visualization of what is most likely inside, accompanied by models of what could happen if the seal is broken. Deadly traps or cosmic map? The signals below. The signals emerging from beneath the burial mound are as unnerving as they are fascinating, because they confirm not only that Sima Qian's ancient descriptions contained a kernel of truth, but also that opening the chamber could unleash consequences we are not prepared to handle. Soil analyses reported in Nature reveal persistent mercury vapor hotspots in the parts per billion range. with some maxima climbing into the 1,000 to 2,000 range. These levels are far higher than what would occur naturally and strongly support the notion of engineered rivers of mercury sealed within the chamber. Mercury in vapor form is extremely hazardous to humans, capable of damaging the brain and nervous system through prolonged exposure, and equally corrosive to delicate artifacts when sudden shifts in humidity and oxygen upset the microclimate that has preserved them for over 2 millennia. In other words, what might look like a silent pool of poison on the inside is already seeping outward as a toxic gas, which explains why so many scientists warn that breaching the chamber without stabilization could be catastrophic. The risk does not end with poison. Historical accounts mention mechanical crossbows rigged to fire at intruders, a detail that has often been written off as colorful myth. Yet, as Business Insider has highlighted, the problem is not necessarily whether spring-loaded weapons still function, but that any sudden change in pressure or airflow could destabilize fragile earthen structures, collapse passageways, or dislodge fittings. A single collapsing vault could be as destructive as any ancient trap, crushing contents and releasing mercury vapor simultaneously. Think of it this way. If we know that radar and gravimetric anomalies point to a complex architecture of rammed earth walls and multiple chambers, how confident can we really be that these structures will hold steady if the equilibrium they have maintained for 2,000 years is disrupted? What makes this even more concerning is that geophysical surveys reported in Heritage Daily indicate unusual densities and voids within the mound, suggesting not one open cavity but a network of interconnected spaces. If researchers drill at the wrong point, they risk puncturing a sealed pocket that could vent mercury, destabilize an entire wall, or allow fragile pigments to oxidize and flake away within minutes. We have already seen how quickly the colors on the terracotta warriors disintegrated once exposed to air. Imagine that same process happening to textiles, scrolls, or wooden structures that have survived in pristine darkness. The chamber is not just a sealed space. It is a delicate ecosystem balanced on a knife's edge. But here is the paradox that makes the story more than a tale of danger. The same anomalies and voids that terrify scientists also align strikingly with ancient symbolism. Sima Qian wrote that the tomb was designed as a cosmos in a chamber, with a ceiling painted to represent the night sky and a floor shaped to mirror the Earth. AI-fused models that integrate radar, gravimetry, and muon tomography are beginning to outline chamber shapes that could correspond to these cosmological schematics without anyone entering the site. If confirmed, it would mean that the emperor did not simply build a palace beneath the earth, but an engineered version of the universe itself. Isn't it remarkable that signals buried under layers of soil can still whisper about how an ancient ruler imagined eternity? Remote sensing across other Qin-era mausolea has already demonstrated patterned siting aligned with principles of Feng Shui, the Chinese geomantic system that seeks harmony between the land, the cosmos, and human construction. Studies summarized in Nature and ResearchGate show consistent orientations of causeways, courtyards, and drainage features relative to cardinal directions and surrounding terrain. When that same analytical framework is applied to the first emperor's mound, it suggests that the inner layouts may also follow deliberate geomantic logic. For example, causeways inferred from anomalies appear to align with symbolic orientations, possibly channeling spiritual energy as much as physical drainage. If correct, these insights mean the mound was never meant to be random engineering. It was a cosmic map rooted in belief. One of the most intriguing hypotheses is that many of the anomalies cluster on the eastern side of the mound. This could be more than coincidence. Qin Shi Huang conquered 6 rival kingdoms to unify China, most of which lay to the east of his home territory. The notion that he would design his afterlife fortress with its strongest defenses facing east reflects a ruler still haunted by the enemies he crushed in life. AI-driven mapping has not yet proven this beyond doubt. But if higher resolution muography confirms that chambers, walls, or voids cluster disproportionately in that direction, it would be powerful evidence of the emperor's enduring paranoia. The placement of defenses, even in death, could reveal the psychology of a man who sought immortality but could never escape fear. Who owns the secrets of the dead? The story of the first emperor's tomb is not only about mystery and technology, but also about human cost and ethical choices. Ancient records speak of hundreds of thousands of conscripted workers, soldiers, peasants, prisoners, forced to labor for decades on the project. While historians debate the exact number, the scale was unquestionably vast, and many likely died from exhaustion, accidents, or disease. This means the mausoleum is more than a treasure vault. It is also a mass grave, built on suffering. Any discussion of opening the chamber must therefore grapple with whether it is appropriate to disturb the resting place of both emperor and laborers, especially when modern China emphasizes reverence for ancestors and the sanctity of burial sites. Modern policy reflects this caution. As Business Insider and Nature have reported, Chinese authorities maintain a strict position. The central chamber will not be opened until technology can guarantee preservation. This aligns with UNESCO's heritage guidelines, which stress that once fragile artifacts are exposed, they can never be returned to their original condition. Instead of rushing to dig, China has invested in public-facing museums, immersive exhibitions, and digitization projects that allow people to experience the terracotta army and the broader mausoleum without jeopardizing what remains sealed. The principle is simple but powerful. Better to wait for future tools than to risk irreversible loss now. The calculus is not easy, however. As Heritage Daily has noted, time itself is a threat. Earthquakes in Shanxi province could destabilize the mound. Groundwater could erode its chambers. Pollution could seep into the soil, and looters, though tightly controlled today, have damaged countless other sites throughout history. This creates a dilemma. If we act too soon, we risk destroying what we seek to study. If we wait too long, natural forces may ruin it anyway. For now, non-invasive AI scanning represents the middle path, offering insights without contact. The promise of AI is underscored by breakthroughs elsewhere. In Peru, a project reported in PNAS and The Guardian combined aerial data with AI detection to uncover 303 previously unknown Nazca geoglyphs in just 6 months, doubling the known catalog at unprecedented speed. In the Andes, the Deep Andes GeoPecha initiative, profiled by the Art newspaper and ResearchGate, is using vision foundation models to map vast landscapes, identifying thousands of potential archaeological sites invisible to the human eye. These successes prove that AI can extract signal from noise, whether in deserts, mountains, or jungles. If it can achieve this abroad, it can certainly continue to refine our understanding of Xi'an's mound, revealing more of its secrets without breaking its seal. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the next video for more exciting content.